Alrighty, so I think in the past 2 years I've only built one computer, and that was like February or March 2022. I mean, we're already in 2023. And the last time I made a video like this, I think was 2 years ago or something, maybe a little bit more. It was at some point in 2021. I mean, it's been a while. But I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. I have a PC build for you guys today. We have a bunch of components here. We're gonna build one. Once again, it's gonna be my first computer build in like a year and a half. I haven't really done any computer building modifications or anything like that besides whatever you've seen in the channel in the past year, but it hasn't been a whole lot. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. We're just gonna get straight into this. So this PC build is gonna be a little bit on a budget. We're looking at $650, something along those lines, more or less, depending if you can find some deals. But here are the components. We're gonna be rocking the AMD Ryzen 5 5500. I think if you're on a budget, a Ryzen processor is gonna be pretty good. A Ryzen 5 processor is going to be maybe $110. I think this is one of the go-to processors if you're around this budget, either this or the Intel Core i5. But I think at the time when I was buying the parts, the Ryzen 5 was a little bit cheaper, so I went with that. For the memory, we're going to be rocking 16 gigs of Team Group DDR4 memory. These are going to be clocked in at 3200 megahertz. For the motherboard, we got the Prime B450M-A2. Now this motherboard is a micro ATX board. It's got 4 slots for RAM sticks. It supports Ryzen processors, obviously. It's Windows 11 ready, and it's got the AMD Socket AM4. I might have used this motherboard at some point in the past, but again, they all look kind of similar. For the graphics card, we are rocking the GeForce RTX 3050. I think this is the first RTX graphics card that I feature in the channel. I've never used one in the past. I'm still rocking my 1070 from 2017 or something. At least that's when I bought it, but I mean, it's been released almost 10 years now. But 3050 it is for this build. Power all that, we're going to be using a 600 watt power supply from Thermaltake. It's a Smart Series power supply, 5-year warranty. It's got a 120mm ultra quiet fan. That should have no problem powering this build. And for the case, we got the BitFenix Nova Mesh M. It's a micro ATX case. It's in all white. It's got a side panel. As I was filming this, I forgot to mention the SSD. This is a Samsung 980 NVMe M.2 SSD. It reads 3500 megabytes per second. This is going to go directly connected to the motherboard, like on the motherboard itself, and it's going to definitely help with cable management because I'm not using a 2.5 inch drive or a 3.5 inch drive. I don't need any SATA or power cables. This goes directly on the motherboard and it's going to look super nice. And it's going to be quick too. Alrighty, so with that said, we're going to go ahead and build the computer. And before we even, finish the video and get to the rest of this, let me know if you want to see more of these videos in the comment section below. I mean, I can do gaming laptops, gaming PCs, all kinds of gaming equipment. I haven't really had the time to record, but I feel like I could make the time. So if you guys want to watch more videos, let me know. Okay, let's get into the build. Alright, so first build in a year and a half is now complete, and it was nice and simple, just the way we like it, no issues whatsoever. This is exactly what we need when we're rusty at PC building. Luckily no issues, random shutdowns or incompatible hardware. I'm sure we've all gotten a taste of that, but everything clicked as it was supposed to, and all while looking stunning in this BitPhoenix Nova Mesh case. Speaking of the Nova Mesh, let's start with that. So right off the bat, this case comes with 3 RGB fans pre-installed with a hub connection in the back. They're all connected, all you have to do is provide the SATA power connection and connect the PWM header to your motherboard. Up in the front, the button next to the power button changes the light color or mode. This case was very noob friendly with plenty of cable management space and cutouts. It comes with some zippy ties and has plenty of room below to hide the cables. Especially if you're using an M.2 SSD like I did, that way you don't have any drives connected on the bottom power supply shroud. The SSD just goes straight on the motherboard and you can use that extra real estate down at the bottom for cables. I didn't install fans up top just because the computer doesn't really need that many. Airflow is not going to be an issue with this massive breathable front panel intake. There's plenty of open space with the graphics card installed, so air should flow quite well. It is a micro ATX build, so it won't be too heavy or big. It'll go nicely on your desk as opposed to below. This came in during the build process, so I didn't get a chance to include it in the intro, but it's an RGB strip. You just can't have a PC without one of these. It's just not right. This is just a standard one I got on Amazon for like 15-20 bucks, I don't remember. It comes with a little remote to change the lights and effects. Nothing fancy here, but it looks great in an all-white chassis. And it looks especially good paired with the RGB fans, having like a red and blue color scheme or white and blue, anything that contrasts, it'll look real nice. The side panel also doesn't have much of a tint, so it's super clear and bright in there. So now for the internal components, the motherboard, the processor, the memory, and the SSD in this case. This is probably one of my favorite things to test just because it looks cool on video. Check this out. I basically just went all out and opened as many applications as I could have, as I thought of, simultaneously. And just do things that you might do when you're on your free time or doing schoolwork or working from home. And boy, it was handled like a charm. I opened the video I recorded, web browser, hardware monitor, email, calendars, calculator, settings, the app store. I ran some updates in the background, Steam, and I had a live wallpaper running in 4K and not a single lag spike, hiccup, jump, whatever you want to call it. Only half of the memory was being used as well. This could have easily handled a lot more, and this also shows just how fast this SSD is at loading applications. The motherboard does have 4 RAM slots. I'm only using 2, so in the future I can double my memory and go up to 32 gigs. It's also got more PWM fan headers if you'd like to add some fans up there. Alright, time for the graphics card, probably what you guys are most interested in. I know I would be. So this is the PNY GeForce RTX 3050. This guy boasts 8 gigs of GDDR6 memory with 1552 MHz clock speed and 1777 MHz boost speed. It supports 8K resolution if you have an 8K display, however that would probably only be good when you're using it for non-gaming things. I don't think 8K gaming is at its best right now. I think it's not even supported in most titles. So if you're sticking with 4K and 2K for gaming, even full HD, you should be perfectly fine. 8K for everything else if you're just browsing the web, doing work, school work, anything like that. 8K should be pretty good. Didn't get to test it though because I don't have an 8K display. I'll be rocking it at 1440p at 144 Hz. You can connect 4 displays to it since it has 3 DisplayPort 1.4s and 1 HDMI 2.1, all of which are active right out of the box. First of all, as you've probably already seen, I'm running a live wallpaper at the highest settings at all times. It does stop whenever there's a window in full screen, so it shouldn't affect any gaming performance as long as I'm running it in full screen. The first game I tested was GTA 5, still among the most popular games out there, and still worth getting if you haven't played it. I don't think I know anybody who hasn't played this game. Running it at a resolution of 1440p with some of the highest settings, I'm able to play smoothly at above 70 FPS consistently. Feels very smooth and looks great. For each game I test, I'll leave some gameplay footage at the end of the video in case you want to see some more of it. Normally I record like 10 minutes of gameplay per game, but I can't fit it all in the video, so I'll include some at the end there in case you're interested. This is an RTX card, so reflections during the rain, explosions, and lighting just look awesome. Next up is Far Cry 5. I still really like the look of this game. Once again, playing it at 1440p, ultra settings, it's handled like a dream. Running it at over 70 FPS consistently, you won't encounter any lag spikes, slowness, or freezing. The 3050 can handle it. So far, yes, there are older games, but for the graphics card in the lower part of the spectrum for this generation, it's been pretty impressive. Fortnite hasn't been as popular as it was in the past years, but it's still being played a lot nonetheless. The 3050 will have no issues running this game. It can do it in full HD, 2K, and even 4K. However, you'll have to tweak the settings a little bit if you want to run it in 4K. I was running it in 2K at epic settings with the highest of everything, and it ran at a cool 50 FPS. We do want to be above 60 consistently, so I lowered the epic settings to high, which is the second best, and after that it ran at 65 to 70 consistently. So you can lower the settings a little bit and do even better. It's still gonna look good. If there were any dips in frame rate, it never went below 60, and I never really realized how much this map had changed. Like I said, I never really played it, but I do really like the look of it. Just something about this cartoony look just makes me want to play it. Next up, played Ghost Recon Wildlands. This one really impressed me. I remember running it on my GTX 1070 back in the day, and it struggled at full HD, very high settings. I remember vividly. I think it got somewhere around the 70 FPS mark, and that was one of the top of the line graphics cards at the time. This RTX 3050 is towards the bottom of the spectrum of this generation of graphics card, but it holds its own. At full HD resolution with a high preset, it cruised at low to mid 80s. This was a lot more than I thought it was going to be at, so I wanted to take it up a notch and test Ultra. I thought for sure this was going to be even below 50. I was not expecting to reach 60 at all, but to my surprise it ran at 70 frames per second consistently. Buttery smooth, and it looks great. Now there are some scenes with mini explosions and activity, so it may drop below 60 for a second or two. Still impressive nonetheless. Battlefield 5 is another game that blew me away. Looking at how Ghost Recon Wildlands was handled, I quickly went with 1440p resolution and maxed out the settings all the way. Battlefield games are ones that look great and aren't very difficult to run for a computer. I guess they're pretty well optimized. With that in mind, the 3050 played nicely at 60 FPS. Once again, this is 1440p maxed out. If you want better performance, you can knock it down a setting or two and you're golden. Once again, very impressed with this card. I also tested Destiny 2 at 1440p with the highest settings. The PC took care of business running it at a whopping 70 frames per second. And once again, it's a very good looking game. For this video at least, that's enough gaming. Let me know if you'd like to see more games showcased. Onto the power supply. I've got nothing much to say about it other than it gets the job done with some power to spare in the system like this. Pretty standard, nothing special about it. This is one area where you can go a number of different ways and get similar results. The biggest thing you'll notice is the color of the cable, and that was the biggest thing for me with this one. Unfortunately, it was also the biggest letdown. The cables are sleeved until the very end of it, and of course, it's a part that's exposed to everyone. That's the only part I didn't like. But you can be creative and find ways to cover it or black it out. In general, in terms of noise, this thing is virtually silent. You'll be able to hear a slight hum of the fans just like anything that's powered on, but it's real easy to drown out and ignore it. If you have other noise around or like a window open, then you won't hear the PC at all. All in all, for the grand prize of like $650, you really can't go wrong with a system like this. If you're comparing it to something like a console, sure, that can run 4K at 60 frames per second, something like the PS5 or the latest Xbox. You do have to decide between looks and frames per second. At least on PC, you have all the settings that you can tweak to get the best performance out there. But the computer has something that the console doesn't have. It's a computer. You can work from home, you can do homework, you can browse the web, watch YouTube videos. Some of those things you can do on a console, but it's not as easy. Hell, on a computer you can stream, you can watch YouTube, you can create YouTube videos, you can edit, you can do all kinds of things. And that's where there's no competition. But that's a discussion for a different video. Let me know what you think about this PC build in the comment section below. Would you consider building this? Would you consider buying one? Or what components would you use? Let me know in the comments. Once again, thanks for watching, and as always,
Screw you guys, I'm going home.